Hello everyone, I'm Mark Skevich and welcome to another edition of Not Politics as Usual. On this episode, we're discussing the ever so sensitive topic of mental illnesses, and a lot of people aren't familiar with it. And today I have a very special guest with me, Dr. Gary Altheim, founder of the charity organization GDS. Gary, pleasure to have you on the program.
Basically, I'm a clinical psychologist, and I founded Growth and Development Services in 1996. And basically, it's a program for people that are challenged by social, behavior, and emotional issues for teenagers and families from tough neighborhoods. We take them away to a camp, which is called Camp Excel Retreat, and then we work with them all year long in a therapeutic and recreational program. We don't use the word mentally ill because we prefer to say challenged by, because we're all challenged by emotional and social and educational issues. So our program has been established to meet that need and provide therapeutic and recreational services to teens and families in Washington Heights and the Bronx and throughout Manhattan. I think it's the stigma attached to mental illness, and that in order to combat this, we all have to be what I call a warrior of the heart. A warrior is not a fighter. A warrior is willing to say, you know what, I have a problem, I need help. And we need to help each other as opposed to pointing fingers at each other and saying, oh, they're crazy. That's not going to help. I could think of an example of a child with ADHD, and it's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which people, like you say, sometimes it's overprescribed, sometimes you don't know if the father's, if there's domestic violence or either way what's going on. But it's amazing because you watch a child in math and the child is doing so great, and then the teacher says, what's wrong with this kid? He can do math. What are you telling me? Why can't he sit down during social studies? And that's the education of what most parents need to know, is that when someone has ADHD or the hyper, they're actually super focused on that. So the teachers get confused. And I come into the classroom, I say, well, part of ADHD is when you're really interested in something, they can look like they know what they're able to do, but that's not really the full picture. When I was a teenager, I was going through a rough time, and I had someone help me and my family. So I learned that there's an outside source could help, and that was one part that helped me become a psychologist. Then there's the other part. When I was a psychologist working in other agencies, I saw that they really weren't getting to the youth. And when I would try to talk to them, and being a white person going into the toughest neighborhoods, they didn't really want to talk to me at all to begin with, but they were forced to talk to me. And I said, wait, why don't we create a better place for us to get to know one another? And I got to go to camp when I was a child. Why shouldn't other people? So the model started, it's called the Reach Your Potential model, where we take them to camp, because that creates, rather play basketball with you and use sports or arts or any kind of music, and then we could begin to talk. So to create that trusting environment. I saw the need that there's 1,000 kids to one guidance counselor in the school up in Washington Heights. In some of the toughest neighborhoods, the same public school system, the opportunities to learn were not there. I said, that's not fair. And I took all my passion and enthusiasm to create our own nonprofit Growth and Development Services, because I found that, unfortunately, it just didn't seem like there were many holistic, great approaches. We call it the Reach Your Potential model, and the process is an in-depth training first for the youth workers. And that's a 3-day retreat, depending on our budget. But basically, ideally, the first step is training the team and recruiting good volunteers that can work with youth. So that's step one for the Reach Your Potential model, what we call the Training Institute. After the volunteers and counselors are trained, then the teens and the youth are thoroughly assessed from all different areas, from the school, from the parents, and there's an in-depth assessment. And we believe that even if you could have a child with, I don't like to label children, but for this case, I'll say their children could be depressed, you could have ADHD, you can have a whole gamut of children together, and if you do it right, you can do it. And our process is to do an in-depth assessment and then bring the group together with an incentive program. So at camp, they're developing, then they go to camp, the retreat. And that's the part of the model where we begin to say, this is the way we go. Okay, we dress appropriately, we talk appropriately, and this is going to be the best time of your life. At the same time, we all have to follow the structure of our model. And there are incentives. We develop individual, group, and community goals, and we develop that bond. The point of entry is the retreat, and then after the retreat, we work with them all year long in the South Bronx or Washington Heights, where we have our different populations that we've worked with, and then we work with them all year long with the volunteers, and we follow up on those goals.